Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of Wicked Mysterious. I'm your host, Katie. I just ran with the whole damn thing.
And I'm Danny, and this is episode 28.
Woohoo!
Keeps on getting higher and higher.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, we've really switched positions.
Yeah, we did. And we're like all official here, guys. Wish you could see us. We have like arms. Are these arms? For
Booms.
Booms. Oh. I would have called it an arm, but it's holding our mics in front of us.
My wonderful Zachy has bought us
Thank you, Zacrophone.
He's bought us some equipment, so thank you so much. And we have soundproofing, and so hopefully the comments about our mic issues will stop because...
Yeah, now we kind of are forced to have a good distance away from the mic. I think I'm the problem. It's me. You knew that was coming.
Yes, I did.
So how was you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm excited.
I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, good.
Because I don't know what it is.
I've hyped it up enough. Right?
Yeah.
It's really not even that exciting. You're going to be probably disappointed.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. So we got a full length here for you. I got a full length for you. I'm ready to begin now. In the early morning hours of April 15th, 1912, just over 1,500 of its 2,224 passengers lost their lives on Britain's largest ship, the RMS Titanic, during her maiden voyage from Southampton, England, across the Atlantic Ocean to New York City. Thought to be unsinkable, the ship unfortunately fell very short on rescue boats, having only 16 of the actual 48 recommended. Aboard the ship was souls of all financial levels, from poverty to upper-class millionaires. The Titanic, just before midnight on April 14th, made contact with a massive iceberg before sinking in less than just 3 hours. Was the sinking of the Titanic the fault of human error, bad coincidences, or a planned operation over greed and power? What if I told you that the Titanic might not have sank at all? No one can be sure. However, there are plenty of bizarre and unusual facts that don't really add up about that fateful night. Let's get into it.
Wow. I've never heard of this.
Really?
Just kidding. Of course I've heard of the Titanic. I was going to cover this, so you beat me to it. I had it on our list.
That's cool. That's cool.
Are you going to talk about
I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about.
I know you are. But I know you're going to do what you want to do. But the guy who said that what is it? The time traveler?
Oh, no, actually.
There was a book written.
There was a book prior to the Titanic. Yes. I do cover
Morgan.
Yeah. It's in there.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Cool.
I didn't know there was any kind of time traveler story related to that, so you could still cover that.
Yeah, I think it was just this guy predicted it happening in the book that he wrote.
I see what you mean.
Something like that.
Yeah. Or it was inspiration for the Titanic to happen. Right? Could go either way. All right, so in 1910 in Belfast, England, the Titanic was beginning its build as a new British passenger liner commissioned by the White Star Lines and would be the largest man-made moving object in the world. The 883-foot boat cost $7.5 million to build and was almost identical to her older sister ship, the RMS Olympic. They also had a younger sister who was smaller in scale called the Britannic. The White Star Lines and its ships were owned by J.P. Morgan's International Mercantile Marine Group. Did you know that? J.P. Morgan was involved? Mm-hmm. Oh, you knew before me. Designed to be unsinkable with 16 consecutive watertight compartments in its hull, its creator thought of the ship herself to be one huge lifeboat. The outside bottom levels of the ship were reinforced for the floor's chambers by overlapping steel plates and using 3 million rivets driven in by a machine. The compartments could be closed off by bulkheads to ensure water would stay contained, and with 4 filled compartments flooded, the boat would still be able to stay afloat. The CEO, Bruce Ismay, and chief designer of the ship, Alexander Carlisle, made some horrible last-minute changes to its design before its approval for construction. Some of the changes were reducing the amount of lifeboats stored on the top deck, thought to be an eyesore by Ismay, stating that people do not pay to look at lifeboats. Also, the watertight compartment walls were lowered some 2 feet underneath the waterline for unknown reasons. The unsinkable boat was designed to take frontal impact, with the first front compartment being the tallest, largest, and strongest. So if they had hit this iceberg head on, direct, there would have been a better outcome. At the same time that the construction of the Titanic started, an enormous 10,000-year-old snow glacier broke apart, and a massive iceberg weighing 2 million tons and the size of 5 Empire State Buildings traveled off of West Greenland, as icebergs routinely do. Tens of thousands of icebergs break off of Greenland yearly, but only 1% to 4% will actually pose a threat to ships crossing in the Atlantic in the shipping route.
Wow, so this is like the perfect storm.
Yeah, like insane how huge it was and that it made it as far as it did. It took 2 years to fully construct the Titanic. As her build was wrapping up and in preparation for the maiden voyage, Captain Edward John Smith was selected to steer the ship. Captain Smith was the best of the best and the most experienced captain of the White Star Lines, and he was referred to as the millionaire's captain, since wealthy men would often switch travel arrangements to be certain that Smith would be their captain. The iceberg had been floating on for 2 years and did get a bit smaller.
Question: How did they know that the iceberg had traveled that far? Were they fucking tracking it or something? Like, how do they know that?
Okay, so icebergs that break off of...
it just takes that long?
It does. It's actually like a route that the icebergs travel, and usually right when they break off of Greenland, they like get stuck in this little... We're recording right now, right?
Yeah.
Like in this little nook, and the icebergs will melt down, break down, and just not move. But this one broke through that little nook and then traveled with the current, which brought it out to I guess there's like an area that these captains know about in the Atlantic where it's like the iceberg area where they've drifted from Greenland.
So it's safe to say that they would have known.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
That this iceberg was there.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yes. So yeah, it was floating on for 2 years, and it did get smaller, but in 1912 it was still massive, weighing 500,000 pounds and 4 times the size and 10 times the weight of the Titanic.
Wow.
Insane. I had no idea it was that big.
No.
It would ironically end up in the direct path of the luxury ship on that tragic night. As the Titanic was preparing to depart on its voyage, a fire did you hear about this? Was found in a coal bunker 10 days prior to it leaving.
My son told me about this.
Gotta love it. The ship ran on coal, and this was a large coal fire, and it was dangerously close to one of the floor chamber walls. An inspection happened and was determined that it could have caused some damage to the effectiveness of the walls. But the decision was made to carry on still. And despite the coal fire continuing to burn and possible damage to the wall, there was firemen down there, and they worked tirelessly, keeping it under control and keeping it burning. What? Yeah. Instead of just extinguishing it, they literally kept it under control, and they had to move coal from bunker to bunker, and they were obviously fueling the ship, but there was literally firemen hired under there to keep it under control.
Why didn't they just put it out?
I know. That's part of the whole mysteriousness of this.
I know this was over 100 years old, but it still makes me so angry.
Yeah?
Just about greed.
All the lives that were lost.
Yeah, it's it makes me feel like there like a pit in my stomach, makes me angry.
So
that.
You already do feel there's a conspiracy to it? Or you feel that it wasn't a natural...
Whether there was or wasn't, they still didn't, like, just the fact that they didn't put the lifeboats because they said it was an eyesore.
Yes,
like,
I see what you mean.
It makes me so angry.
So yeah, none of the passengers up above were aware of the fire burning down below, but all of like the head honchos did.
So the fire continued to burn after the ship left?
Yep, and continued throughout the voyage until it sunk.
I didn't know that.
I know, and it is actual documentation proof.
So these firemen, they must have been paid very well to not, you know, they must, like, nobody was like, what are we doing?
What are we doing this for? I'm sure, but when JP Morgan and the CEO is telling you that you need to do this, you're going to do it, you know?
Right, of course.
And I'm sure they were paid well. I mean,
until they died.
Yeah, until they died.
R.I.P. That's very sad.
But yes, so the captain was aware, and the CEO, like I said, and obviously Morgan, and I'm sure there was some other officials that were also aware, and obviously everybody down in the bottom working were aware of this fire. But there's actually a photo of the Titanic docked, getting ready for departure, where you can see that there's like this darker spot or shadow. Did you see that?
That's the one my son showed me.
Oh, yeah. And that's actually like in the exact location of the bunker that the fire was in. So you wonder if there was some sort of damage. I would imagine like there has to be damage to the walls and smoke and stuff like...
They won't even reopen restaurants if there's been a fire.
Right.
Or houses, like you can't live in them again.
Yeah.
Unless it's like, you know, deemed safe. But they do a number on the structure.
Yeah. At departure, this is very weird. Captain Smith makes last minute changes to his crew members. He shuffles them around. It basically involved like the first officer and second officer. Like he took somebody from the Olympic, which is the older sister's ship, somebody from there, and brought them over and was like, hey, buddy. His name was something Blair. I want to say it was David Blair. And he basically gave him the boot, right? He was like, we don't need you anymore. I replaced you as second officer. Like, so there's no room for you. So he was super bummed that he was replaced. But so he had to go and pack his bag, right? He had to go pack his bag quick. And whether he was aware of this or not, we don't know. We cannot be sure. He took a very, very important key with him. He packed it in his suitcase and he took it off with him. That key was literally the key to saving the ship from the impact of the iceberg. So it's just a little weird that this last minute shuffle happened with the captain, sending him home. And it just so happened that he took this key. And I'll tell you right now what it was for. Instead of making you wait, it was holding the crow's nest binoculars. That key was the key to the locker that was holding the binoculars for the ship. There were other binoculars on the ship. The bridge and the captain and, you know, others, the CEO, had binoculars, but for whatever reason, they didn't supply the crow's nest with a backup when they knew they didn't have any binoculars that night. So that's even more of a reason to be angry, because there was binoculars on that ship, and those young guys on the crow's nest were using their eyes to watch for that iceberg.
Yeah.
That's just fucked up. It's a lot of responsibility on them. You would be fucked with your blind eyes in the dark.
Right? Yeah, seriously, I can't see shit.
You'd be fucked.
Yeah.
You'd be like...
Is that an iceberg? We haven't even left yet.
Right? Nope.
My son is obsessed with the Titanic, has been for years and years. And
I know that.
When he was little, one day he was like, Mom, the Titanic is the most annoying ship. And I was like, what do you mean annoying? And he was like, they got the warning about the iceberg and they annoyed it. And I was like, I think you mean ignored it. And he's like, yeah. So
yeah,
they ignored it too, but they weren't even looking anyway.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So annoying.
It is super annoying. He's right. Yeah, so the luxury ship was traveling on, but was noted by passengers that it had a slight lean to the left. Why do you think that is? The ship was due to arrive in New York City April 17th. Not soon after the departure, Captain Smith came just a few feet away from hitting a New York steamer. So basically, as soon as he left the port with this freaking boat, he almost hit somebody. He's supposed to be the best of the best, this captain.
Wow.
And you literally came like feet away from crashing into this New York steamer. That would have not made me feel good.
Some kind of Final Destination shit.
It seems like that. It really does. So that just seems a little odd. Like, are you really the captain you say you are?
So what was the lean from?
Well, we're going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
Luckily, they passed one another safely, right? They didn't collide. But just 1 year before, that very same captain got into a collision with the Titanic's almost identical sister, the Olympic. He collided with a Royal Navy cruiser called the Hawk. Both ships suffered serious damages, with the Olympic's damages being permanent and the Olympic being deemed liable for the Hawk's damages.
Oh, isn't there a theory? You're going to get to it?
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's what this whole thing is about.
Okay,
really.
okay.
Because I like that one. I like that theory.
Yep.
Aboard the Titanic was some of the wealthiest families alive and also a little over 700 third-class passengers. The passengers were grouped by floors, and their amenities and food were based off of their class. Tickets were more expensive the higher the class and came with much better privileges and food. Of course, I mentioned food because I literally looked at all the food on the Titanic, like what they served. And the third class food wasn't that bad. Like, I wouldn't have been that mad.
Yeah.
But of course, first class was like a great poupon.
Yeah.
Third class was on the bottom floor and first up top. All was wonderful on the ship. Every floor was filled with lively entertainment and groups of happy people and families socializing, and everybody was real confident in the Titanic's safety. The Titanic wasn't really advertised for like being unsinkable more than like being luxurious.
Right.
I learned. Like, I always thought it was just advertised as like the unsinkable ship, but really it was more of like a luxury.
I think that's just what like the engineering.
Yeah, they added it in
said.
like to design to be unsinkable.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
On the 14th of April, 2 communication crew members worked endlessly handling incoming messages from other ships on the Atlantic, and also they were keeping tabs of each and every passenger message that was sent out. This day, some warnings of ice were coming in. The warnings were to be given to the captain. There were 6 total iceberg warnings before the collision. 6. The day before, they were informed that the ice was in their direct path, and so the captain made the decision to go off course a little bit and attempt to avoid any icebergs. And this decision lined them up exactly with where this iceberg was.
Oh, so they didn't ignore the warnings.
They didn't ignore all of the warnings, but they did ignore warnings.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, it seems like when Captain Smith was getting these warnings, he wasn't really taking them that seriously. Some of the warnings were coming the day before, and the ice warning would be like a whole day away. So like the captain wasn't really putting much thought into it because they had to pass this area regardless. You know what I mean? So it was like,
and it's known for having ice.
It is. So it's like he knew this was a day away, right?
Right.
So I always lose my spot when I do that. I should really come up with something with like my finger or something to like, come up with my finger.
That's all right. Just
don't keep that in there. Come up with my finger. Imagine if that was a tick. Come up with my finger. All right.
now I'm leaving it in.
That's not funny. Make it funny.
I think it's funny.
Oh,
no. Sorry. No, it's not.
Yeah.
But it would be if it was you. I'd laugh at you.
Right. That's funny. On the evening of the accident, the weather was described by Captain Smith as a flat calm to the lookout crew, which means that the ocean water is just totally calm, making it very hard to see icebergs. Since no water is visible, like crashing into the icebergs, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If it was super windy, they would be able to at least see the icebergs with their human eyeballs much easier,
Human eyeballs?
Than the human eyeballs. Not alien eyeballs. Not animal. Keep going. Smith advised the young men in the crow's nest to watch very carefully. However, with a dark night and a flat calm, it was almost impossible to see any dangerous icebergs up ahead, especially without binoculars. The lookout crew had not one single pair, and the captain knew this. At 11:39, the iceberg was only 10 meters away and still could not be seen. 10 meters away. 11:39. Without binoculars, traveling at the speed of 22.5 knots, 23 being the max. Now, like we said, this captain knows this is iceberg territory, and he's just
barreling through.
Yep, continuing as fast as he can. So literally at almost max speed. The iceberg, as tall as the crow's nest now, came into the vision of one of the lookout men, Frederick Leet, just 30 seconds before impact.
Oh my God.
That's when he seen it. That's about the time when you would see it.
Yeah.
Probably.
No, I probably still
like
wouldn't.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
He phoned up to the captain, and those famous words, iceberg right ahead. The call was made to throw the engine into reverse. Down below in the boiler rooms, the red lights came on, instructing for the ship to stop. So that was their way to tell the guys down there, like, hold off on your coal. And so that must have been scary because there is no reason to be stopping, you know?
Stupid question.
Yeah, no.
Really stupid. I'm sorry, I'm going to sound so stupid.
It's not
but
stupid.
Boats don't have brakes, right?
No. They don't. I think the engine
the
just
rudders
ceases.
would have to
because
halt
it's
or something,
like propellers under there, and I think that they just stop. The engine stops and the propellers stop, but they're gonna float until they come to a stop.
Yeah.
So I think how they do that is the anchors, right? Like they use anchors to like come to the complete stop.
Can you anchor a boat that size? I'm really showing how stupid I truly am, but
I think there's anchors on boats that size. Yeah. There is. I've heard of other boats like trying to alleviate weight and like getting rid of anchors when they're sinking.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's interesting. I don't think there's brake. No, because I think they would have hit the brake as hard as they
There can't be a brake.
It's
not like they can't just stop.
That's probably why they shouldn't have been going like max speed.
Right.
Right?
Unless they meant to do it.
Mm-hmm. Head of duty down there, Frederick Barrett. He instructed the crew to stop feeding the fires, and they felt the sudden change of the ship being thrown into reverse. The steering was also directed hard to the side in addition to being in reverse. Like that's how they thought that it was going to.
So that's their brake system.
Basically. They were trying to avoid the front of the ship hitting the iceberg, which we know would have actually been better because of the way it was designed, you know. So they changed the direction. But the warning was just too short of notice. The ship appeared to have had a chance to miss and pass the iceberg. It came up to it slowly on its side, and it grazed all down the side of it. There was really no forceful impact at all. Like, I always thought there was like a really hard crash into the iceberg, but really it just like, it skimmed the side of it. So no forceful impact. In fact, most surviving passengers on the ship, they continued, well, not surviving. Most passengers on the ship continued sleeping, and the survivors stated that all it felt was like a little tremble. There were people that survived that claimed that they heard an explosion from below. It could have been they thought it was an explosion, and it might have been the metal against the ice or the steel or whatever against the ice. But I found it kind of funny that most people slept through it, and it was just kind of like a vibration, like a shudder. It's kind of like, to me, if a bomb happened in the bottom, like if an explosion happened, you'd feel like a vibration, you know, if there was an explosion. I think obviously it had to be a controlled explosion because the entire boat didn't explode. I don't know how that would work, but
so the area that the iceberg hit, was that where the fire was?
It was in very close proximity. Yes, there was a total of 5 boiler rooms that were affected.
By the iceberg?
I'm sorry, not boiler rooms. 5 compartments were affected. Yeah, by the iceberg. So it was like really We don't know. Obviously, they say it was by the iceberg, but there was a pretty big, decent sized gash on the left side of the ship, which is also the same side that the Olympic hit, which we're going to get to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, very.
What a strange coincidence.
Right. Yeah, so from up top, everybody thought that they'd been lucky. Like, everybody was like, oh crap, we just missed that iceberg. But down below in the boiler room number 6 to be exact, water started bursting through just about 2 feet above the stockhold plate. Now, mind you, they lowered those stockhold plates 2 feet right before the construction. And if they had kept it, who knows? Like,
why did they do that?
We don't. There is absolutely no reason. It was like just a design flaw. They wanted to lower it. They thought they didn't need that much space for the walls.
Was it like a money saving thing?
Most likely for building materials, because that's they went over the blueprints before they were approved for the design. So, but there was like no reason given for it, why they lowered it. They just said that we should lower I think they just thought if there was a collision in the front of the boat, they wouldn't even need, and it's true. If you look at the design, the compartments are not that high. The front ones are super high, but then they get wicked low. And it's just like, why?
Right.
Why wouldn't you just be super safe?
And they were supposed to be watertight, right?
They were supposed to be watertight, and the bulkheads initially were not down, like they weren't closed. But this dude under there, the head of the boiler room, what was his name again? I just said it. I always forget names. Frederick Barrett. He ordered everybody to close them, which ended up actually being another fatal mistake. Like, there's a lot of mistakes that happened. That's for sure.
Because they never planned for this. They had no plan in case.
You're right. And actually, there was a scheduled plan for safety for this, and I'm going to get into it. But let's just say, without fully getting into it, Captain Smith canceled that safety training for no reason. Nobody knows why the safety training was canceled.
Did he go down with the ship?
Captain did, but CEO made it out.
Oh.
Yep. Okay. So the water began pouring in. The bulkheads were not down. The rooms were not closed. And so the men were ordered to close them immediately. And this weakened the pressure. That wall with the fire, that wall was weaker. And it was so built up with pressure that it burst. And basically five compartments were affected. And we knew that 4 compartments being filled, this boat could have still carried on. But because 5 they were doomed at this point. 400 tons of water was pouring in a minute, to be exact.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how fast it was filling. A regulation call for assistance was ordered by Captain Smith to Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, the 2 communication operators in charge. Interestingly, they did not work for the Titanic. They were working for the Marconi. However, Jack Phillips had gotten aggravated with the nearest ship, the Californian, sending them ice warnings. At this point, they'd received 5 of them. And this warning, the 5th one, was from the Californian stating that they were stopping for the night due to ice and giving the iceberg's exact location. The Californian was interrupting him while he was pressed for time. He only had 2 hours to complete all of the passenger messages on the boat. And that's how he made his money. And he had to get that done before they got out of the signal zone. So he responded very rude to this other boat. He actually called the other operator a bloody idiot and told him to shut up.
Wow.
Because he was sick of getting these ice warnings at this point, and he was interrupting him. Right. So this didn't go well with the other operator, right? So the other operator on the Californian, he decided to shut communication off for the entire night because that guy pissed him off. That Californian ship was only 2 hours away from the Titanic. It was the closest hope for help. So had that little tiff didn't happen, they would have still had their communication open. And when they sent out their SOS call, they would have received it.
Again, the greed.
Again, it's just
like so many lives lost because you were trying to make money.
Make your money. Yeah. And ignoring warnings coming in, The final and most critical message, the sixth warning, came from the SS Mesaba. It read, in latitude 42 north to 41.25 north, longitude 49 west to 50.30 west, saw much heavy packed ice and great number of large icebergs, also field ice. Weather good, clear. This message came with no MSG prefix, which signals master servicegram, in which it is required a personal acknowledgement receipt from the captain. And the prefix was simply ice report, so it was totally ignored by Jack Phillips again. Yeah. My stomach. Did you hear
I heard that.
Jeez.
I thought it was thunder.
After striking the iceberg and the Titanic began to sink, the Titanic sent out its first distress call at 12:15 a.m. Sadly, the near Californian would not receive the message. Other ships, named the Carpathia and the Virginian, received it, and they rushed to the Titanic's aid, but they were just all too far. The Carpathia arrived first, but the Titanic had already sunk, and Captain Arthur Henry Rostron rescued more than 700 survivors in lifeboats.
Oh my God.
So there's a number of circumstances that should have been avoided by proper protocol, which leaves a lot of room for debates and conspiracies.
Yeah.
So this is the fun part. This is where we get to talk about the conspiracies. First of all, J.P. Morgan, part of the top 5 wealthiest families in the world, the owner of the White Star Lines, was supposed to be on that voyage, but canceled last minute due to poor health. However, in addition to him canceling, his friend Milton Hershey of Hershey Chocolate also canceled last minute. Several other extremely wealthy families perished, being some of Morgan's rivals. Colonel Jacob Astor with his wife, and they were New York builders of hotels and skyscrapers. Isidore Strauss and his wife, and his banker and owner of Macy's department store.
Did you know who they are?
Strauss and
that family, that husband and wife.
Yep. The Macy's department and the banker.
Macy's.
Yep.
Are famous because they were very much in love, and the wife was offered a lifeboat, and she said no, where he goes I go.
Yes.
And that family, their grandchild is the wife of the CEO of the Titan.
No way.
Yeah.
That just gave me goosebumps.
Right? Crazy, huh?
That's a wicked cool little fact.
Yeah.
Wow. Wild.
There's
their love was so strong. They were basically like the Jack and
and
Rose.
There's I think a New York public school named after them, and there's also a statue made for them.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
No, that's fine. I loved that. And also was Benjamin Guggenheim. He was a builder of mining machinery. But anyway, so these were millionaire families that some say, because there's a lot of different accounts about this, but some say that some of them were opposing against the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank that JP was pushing for. Unclear if that's true. Some say that the men weren't opposed to it. So I don't know what to believe about that, but I still felt like it was worth noting. But it is still odd that these wealthy families died and JP Morgan and his friend managed to escape that.
Mm-hmm. Especially being the CEO, you would have thought the maiden voyage, they would have been on it and ready to go.
So JP Morgan was the owner of the what is it called?
White Star?
No. So JP was the owner of the International Mercantile Marine Group, which owned the White Star Line.
Okay.
The CEO was Ismay, who was on the boat.
Okay.
But yes, so Ismay did take the voyage.
Yeah.
However, we'll get to this too. Ismay was a coward and jumped out with the women in the boat and survived. Mm-hmm. Piece of crap. Ismay. That name just sounds like trouble.
Doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does.
Jinx.
Okay. So a year before the Titanic sank, this is where it gets real good, girl.
Okay.
Get ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm buckling in.
Buckle in. Okay. So a year before the Titanic sank, in 1911, Captain Smith damaged the Olympic in a crash with the Hawk. The damages were determined to be the Olympic's fault by Lloyd's of London Insurance. Olympic's damages were permanent and bad and unusable until fixed. But this cost the White Star Lines to nearly go into bankruptcy, having to cover the Hawk's damages. And after spending so much money on building the Titanic, they were left nearly bankrupt, and no insurance money was given to the White Star Lines to cover the damages.
Why?
Because they were at fault for the accident. So when
Okay.
you're at fault, you're not going to receive any insurance money.
Okay. So they don't do like deductibles
Like with the deductibles, no, like with our cars.
Yeah.
At least not like these type of, we're talking $1 million boats, like,
Right,
you
right.
know. So
That seems strange to me. But,
yeah, there
but it
still
was-
should some coverage,
it was
you're paying for
probably-
insurance. So it's like, there should be something, but I think with boating, it's like a little different maybe because
And this was probably like the very beginning of insurance.
true, we're talking back, 1911 here.
Yeah.
So yeah. After the crash, the Olympic came back to be docked, patched up, and underwent a makeover with some fresh paint. There's photos of both ships being docked together while the Titanic was still being built, and they're very, very, very similar with very minimal differences. One difference was the spacing of the porthole windows and the shapes of the passenger windows. So the shapes on the Olympic of the passenger windows were like slits, and Titanic just had your typical like rectangle type of windows, right? And the Olympic, the spacing of the portholes were different. So they were like grouped in twos,
Okay.
and the Titanics were evenly spaced.
Okay.
Okay. So these are, and you can see these photos, you can look them up and you can see the differences and that's literally like, if you just look at it quick and remember, we're talking 1911, like, or 1912, like these are not plastered all over the internet for everybody to see. Most people have never even seen the ships in person. So
Right.
they're just arriving and they're going to get on any ship and they're going to be told it's the Titanic. They're going to think it's the Titanic.
Right.
Right. Right. So survivors noted that the Titanic sloped to the left throughout the voyage, right?
Yeah.
Which would have happened with the damaged Olympic. And it did happen because on the way back from the accident, the Olympic was slanting to the left, and which was one of the reasons why it wasn't going to be usable. The huge ship also sank incredibly fast, under 3 hours, which was record-breaking for such a large ship with so many preventative sinking measures. To me, that still seems like a long time. It was 2 hours and 40 minutes. That still seems like a long time, but I guess given the boat
Just
size,
how big it is. Yeah.
yeah, it's supposed to take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So, it's speculated that CEO Bruce Ismay, whom was one of the few men to survive by sneaking into a lifeboat filled with women and children at the very last minute, and JP Morgan, they came up with this idea to switch out the ships and sink the damaged ship for insurance money. At the bottom of the ocean, in the pictures and videos that we can see right now, we can see that the windows of the Titanic and the portholes actually match the sister ships of the Olympic.
Right.
So, the serial number that was found from debris of the Titanic in the bottom of the ocean did match the Titanic serial number, but I'm really not convinced about that.
No, because it was under
You can
construction
plate it.
at the
exactly.
time.
You can plate it. You
Right.
could, yeah. It's
Right.
like, come on. I'm not impressed by that.
There's lots of room to change that.
Absolutely.
But if the insurance wasn't paid when what was it? Not the Britannic. Was it the Britannic?
Nope.
The Olympic.
The Olympic.
When the Olympic hit the Hawk.
Yep.
They didn't pay
Right.
the insurance.
Right.
Why would they pay it if they hit an iceberg?
An iceberg is a natural disaster like type of coverage.
I see, like an
Yes.
act of God type thing.
Right.
Okay.
Like, especially with the conditions of the night, that all takes into being factored in with it. Yeah.
I wonder, because nowadays insurance would be like, how many warnings did you have? I'm sorry, no.
Right? If it was deeply investigated, I don't think insurance would have given them anything.
Right.
Because they literally were negligent in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That they lucked out back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're also talking about JP Morgan here. I mean, dude is still involved in like schemes and owing like billions of dollars to people because he's a shitbag.
Yeah.
And the companies, that he
Not
has.
to mention how many people supposedly were against the Federal Reserve stuff and banks profiting off of it's.
Yeah. Yep. And it wouldn't have been the first insurance scam with boats.
No.
It wouldn't have been.
No, people still do that.
Actually, at this time, like scams were like big. Insurance schemes and frauds and stuff were big.
Yeah.
So
thanks a lot, JP Morgan. Now we have to pay freaking an arm and a leg to drive in Massachusetts.
Yep. And we're like in crazy debt too with the Federal Reserve, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the ocean, and I already said that, and I said that with so much confidence. Did you see that? At the bottom of the ocean, a crew worker named Patty Fenton told other crew members that the boats were in fact switched, and he knew. And in 1996, an Australian man wrote a letter to the Northern Star newspaper about a man who had a conversation with his son, Patty. So I'm assuming it's the same Patty, stating that Patty experienced coming out of the port as a survivor, and there was a group of people that came out of the port as survivors, and two men pulled them aside, one having a high position in the company and one having a high position in the government, and they basically were read an official secrets act, and they were told that if any rumors were to come out about the sinking of the ship or any type of insurance scam, the men would be serving a minimum of 20 years in jail, and when they were released, they would never be able to get a job.
Wow.
This is just hearsay, of course,
yeah.
But it's just something fun to note. I think there is some kind of like the fact that there is evidence that Fenton was telling crew members that the boats were switched, and then you get this letter years later to, a newspaper about somebody named Patty. Like it just seems like it's the same person. I don't know. Patty, you're the mustard on my fries. Oh no, it's Patty, you're the mayonnaise on my fries.
Patty, you're the ketchup on my hot dog. Patty, you're the ice in my tea.
You knew it.
You're the mustard on my something.
Hot dog. No.
Patty, you're the mayonnaise for me.
Whoa. Okay.
Of course I know it.
Yeah, you do. I never really liked Doug, so.
Oh, I loved Doug until Disney ruined it like they ruin everything.
I can't believe we just sang that. Yeah. Okay, so allegedly again, Ismay arranged for, and this does make sense, that Californian boat to be nearby. Okay. The Californian was a passenger boat, and it had no passengers on it. It was just chilling. I mean, it docked for the night because of the ice warnings. But yeah, it was just chilling, empty. Instead of passengers on the boat, it was filled with blankets and sweaters. Right? Why? Why would you already know, basically, that you're going to be rescuing people? That's what it seems like to me. You have an empty passenger boat 2 hours away, chilling.
Wow.
Yeah.
But also, just to play devil's advocate
I love
again,
when you play this.
If it was true that they were gonna put this many people's lives in danger for insurance money, why even care about the fact that they're gonna need blankets?
So there's a huge theory that people were never supposed to die. This was supposed to be strictly an insurance scam, but they were going to be heroes in the end, Everybody was going to be saved.
How? If they didn't have enough lifeboats?
They had a boat, a passenger boat in distance waiting for a call, and they were going to come and they were going to rescue everybody from this boat. Either
But it was 2 hours away.
Yeah, and the boat was supposed to take longer than 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay.
So if Ismay had planned for this boat to be nearby for this reason, I feel like 2 hours would be like a believable distance, because why else, like, they had a reason to stop there, you know what I mean, because of the ice. So, like, the other boats, they were all way, way far out. They passed the ice, no problem. That boat could have probably passed through the ice too.
So the Californian, is that the one that had no passengers on it?
Yes.
Okay, and isn't that the one that shut off there?
Yes. And again, the communicating operators, I don't think had any idea of what was going on.
So they were, if they were supposed to be called,
they would have gotten the call and they would have come
but they didn't
to
know.
Their rescue, and they didn't. Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you said the 2 hours and 40 minutes was supposed to take longer. You mean to sink the ship?
To sink completely.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So of course there was probably going to be lives lost. Like, of course, when you're going to plan an elaborate scam like this involving,
you're risking
lives no matter what.
Right.
So of course, to do something like this, you know, there could be people dying.
Yeah.
But for the most part, women and children were to be saved. You know, it was going to be a tragedy, but they were going to collect a lot of money, like millions of dollars for this.
Yeah.
And then be up and running again. So yeah, there is a theory that that boat was there for a reason. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out with that little cocky little shit on the operations.
Yeah.
You know, calling him a bloody idiot for sending warnings. Like,
right.
Unreal. Yeah, so. Okay.
Imagine being that, like, the receiver of that message. Like, what the fuck?
Exactly. Being like off. Like, I'm trying to help you out, brother. Okay. Like, seriously.
So weird.
On the boat, some shady behavior was happening. The captain had sent home Blair, which we talked about, who had the only key in for the crow's nest, for the locker with the binoculars. After the captain received the ice warning in the afternoon on April 14th with direct coordinates of the ice warning, the captain canceled the crew lifeboat safety training. So there was supposed to be a huge safety crew training. And he canceled it right after he literally read the coordinates of where the iceberg was, looked at the first officer and said, like, call it off. And that was it. So it was very odd. Everybody was very confused why there was not going to be any more safety training. But my thing is, why the hell wasn't safety training happening way before they even left this voyage? You know what I mean?
Have you ever been on a cruise?
Never. I get super, super seasick. Even, I know everybody says big boats, but I mean, I can't even step in like a trailer that's docked without feeling like I'm going to throw up and being sick for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So like, I just have never really had an interest in it.
I went on a cruise and they did do a safety thing.
They're supposed to,
They pull you out of the cabins and they make you stand on the sides and they show you this is where your lifeboat is.
Right.
And like, I don't know if they
great.
always do that. I went on like a party cruise that was like from Miami to Turks and Caicos for like 3 days.
Cool.
4 days. And they eventually gave up because everybody was like screaming and yelling, but they were like, you're going to die if you don't pay attention and something happens. Like you need to pay attention to this. Yeah. Like very, very forceful about like safety.
And that's super good. I mean, nowadays, absolutely, it's 100% protocol. Back then, it was like just the crew needed to know more. I was surprised. I didn't know
that they did that.
Right. Yeah. They and that's good. I mean, I would want to know. Yeah.
I'm sorry to go off topic.
No.
Excuse me. Slightly related though.
Yeah.
We should cover how many people go missing off cruise ships. Have you ever?
Never even.
It happens so much and it's international waters. So there's like problems with like who's responsible to.
Oh, of course. That
crazy,
jurisdiction.
Right? The cruise that I went on, we were, the boat was docked and we were sitting on the beach and you could see the boat in front of you. And we watched somebody jump out of a window of the boat, like into the water for fun. And they had like a severe head injury and they had to be like med flighted out of there.
Oh, what an idiot.
Right?
Oh
Crazy,
God.
huh?
That they're lucky it wasn't worse.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Anywho.
So at this time when he canceled the lifeboard safety training, he also then directed to go off course a little bit. And he was saying that was to avoid the iceberg, but it literally lined up exactly to where the direct coordinates were. So it's like, was he really trying to avoid it? Or was he
just
trying to get
idiot?
Closer?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe this was part of the plan. Maybe the CEO, Ismay and Morgan were like, listen, you need to hit an iceberg.
Yeah.
It needs to happen
Right.
for us to get the insurance.
Right.
So
But then he went down with the ship. So, like, what benefit is it to him?
the captain did, but I truly think that's just like a captain thing. Like, you know,
guess, but
I
you're
know.
going to risk your life for what?
You're think if everybody was saved,
that's like a suicide
he would
mission.
have. I think he would have. But I think because the operation went so wrong and so many people were dying, he took that responsibility to go down with his ship.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think so, obviously. That's just me.
Because it's like
trying to make sense of it. But
it's like a kamikaze mission.
he
Like,
was
what are you doing?
Yeah, he was really visibly upset. And I think it's because the communication wasn't working to
They're like,
the
okay,
Californian.
where's the ship?
Yeah. And the other ones, like I said, they really were trying to get there as fast as they could. But
Wow, that is so crazy. An empty boat.
an
That would
empty
hold
boat,
enough passengers.
exactly, completely empty, filled with blankets and coats.
I still think, like, and maybe the decision was made ahead of time to not have the lifeboats on the ship, but
Yeah.
like, you would think if their goal was to not kill anybody, they would have had all the lifeboats ready.
Yeah, and I think because at the time with the design, it wasn't even, the Olympic hadn't crashed yet.
Yeah.
Because it took 2 years, and the crash happened 1 year before Titanic set sail. So they had already removed all those lifeboats even prior to this whole plan.
And they probably thought it really was unsinkable. They probably really believed that.
They did. I think they thought they had a lot of time.
Yeah.
If anything. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, they probably knew how to sink it because, again, hitting it on the side
Yep.
wasn't the safest place. And the
Right.
captain knew that.
Yeah.
But the captain ordered that the ship go to the side. So, again,
So it
maybe
just
they were
got out of
trying
hand.
to hit it in that same spot. Because if it was the Olympic patched up, that's going to be super weak.
Yep. And there's a fucking fire that's been burning for 2 weeks under
Not
there.
to mention that. That's going to weaken everything, I
Right.
would imagine.
Right.
And I don't know, some people think that they wanted it to be a fire on the boat, not a sinking. Some people think that they kept the fire burning because they wanted the fire to, in the middle of the Atlantic, become a problem, and then call for help, or maybe call for help. I don't know, but either
you can
way,
set a fire at any point.
you can. Except a fire is going to like spread rapidly.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't have been the best idea. I feel like a lot more people would have died.
Yeah.
Like, at least we had these 700 that lived.
Right.
And if it was a fire, I mean, people just die from smoke, all those floors. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you know that there was like an explosion. When the Titanic broke in two, there was an explosion, probably related to just the bunkers
Well, they had
with
coal.
Right,
Yeah.
with the coal fueling the ship. But yeah, there's some people that think that like it was going to be supposed to be like the fire on the boat was the issue. I think it was going to be the iceberg, basically because of all these little weird things that happened, like how the captain changed the course and how they didn't hit it right on when they could have hit it right on.
Yeah.
Very easily, they were aimed right for it.
Yeah.
But instead they hit that same side, and
Too many coincidences.
yeah, there's just a lot of coincidences if you believe in coincidences, if you don't think this is a conspiracy. And obviously, just to put it out there, we are not saying this happened. This is just a conspiracy.
It happened.
So, but yeah, back to that. So, all right, it was in the direct path, right? So, mind you, again, if he was really afraid of hitting an iceberg and he had these warnings, and there was several that he did receive, I don't think he would be still continuing at max speed. Although, again, there was some like people that say, well, that fire that was burning down there, they kind of had no choice but to be scooping that into the bunkers, so into the coal burner. So I don't know. I don't know if like the speed really had anything to do with the captain, or if it was just because they were being fueled so heavily like that.
Okay.
I don't know. That is unclear. So the fire left burning in the coal bunker 10 days before the departure. So we know combustion engines, that's what this ship had. We need the fire and the fuel for it to propel through the water.
Yeah.
And so, yep, the fire continued. It was managed, but for the entire trip. Like, it just doesn't make sense at all. And there was a deposition held 2 weeks after the Titanic sank with some surviving people, like key
shit.
people.
Is there documents of that?
Yes. And a lot of this information comes from that. A lot of it has to do with survivor accounts and documentation for it. Like the fire was absolutely documented, that it was found 10 days before. And yet they admitted during the deposition that they were extinguishing the fire with fire hoses down there and moving coal from bunker to bunker and keeping it going. So,
and the fire was not the actual engine, right? This was like just a random fire that was going on, right?
Correct. It had nothing at all to do with the coal bunker at all.
Okay.
Yep. So it was just contained and kept, which is weird.
It's really hard to put out a coal fire. There's an entire town in Pennsylvania that's burning.
Why.
Did you hear about that?
No.
It's an abandoned town because the coal mine caught fire.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I think it's Centralia, Pennsylvania. It's another thing
I
my
was
son is
thinking
obsessed
about
with.
the one that's underground.
It is underground.
Yeah, the coal mine, obviously.
Yeah.
So, and it's you cannot live
can't
there,
go there
because
their population is like 3.
It's still burning.
It's still
to
burning.
this day. It just can't stop.
Yes.
Yeah, that's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
It's so crazy. But yeah, it's just really strange. Maybe they couldn't put it out, and maybe that, and this is a theory. So like maybe they couldn't put it out. They were trying, but they couldn't. And so Morgan was just like, because apparently he said, like, let's just contain it. We're going to go, because they had all these people already on board to go, and they didn't want to hold the trip up. They didn't want to have to postpone it. They had already like lost so much money. They needed money. I think he just wanted the ship to go on. But so it's supposedly like, keep the passengers unaware, and then when they get off in New York City, we'll put the fire out then. Why didn't you put the fire out before, when it was found 10 days? I don't know. It's just very strange to me. It doesn't make any sense. That part I just really can't wrap my mind around, the whole fire thing.
Right.
Unless there was a bigger purpose for it, unless it was meant to weaken the chambers down there.
Yeah, it has to be.
It has to be. Okay, so a whole other quick little turn, because I know we're getting real long here. There's not much left. This again, based off of survivor testimony. While the boat was going down, people in lifeboats witnessed a smaller boat in the near distance, like of the visible distance. Okay. They assumed that it was a boat coming for rescue, but it wasn't. It just floated there and watched the Titanic sink. Okay. Very weird. This is account from many survivors. Okay. Of course, if you see a boat sitting there and your ship is sinking and you want to be rescued, you're like hopeful, right? You're paying attention to this boat, unless it was a mirage, right? That crossed my mind.
I don't think so.
So it just floated out there. Okay. At this time, Britain, the country that claimed to rule the waves at the time, saw Germany as its biggest threat to dominance in Europe. The German emperor wanted to build a bigger and better naval fleet than Britain. Germany had powerful U-boats that could sink huge passenger ships. And just 3 years after the Titanic sunk in 1915, 1,198 people died sinking after a U-boat sunk a British passenger liner off the coast of Ireland. Okay? World War I was in 1914, right? A couple years after the Titanic sank. So there is a theory that this was actually an attack from Germany with U-boats under the water. Hitting, which would explain the hole that you see, like on that side of the boat. But this would be like completely unrelated to the conspiracy A that we're going with here on the switching out of the ships and this whole thing being a plan. Yeah. This would be a complete different conspiracy that the Germans were basically practicing their war tactics, basically, like purposely sinking it.
Why would that be hidden?
Why would what be hidden?
The fact that Germany did it. It wouldn't be hidden. Unless you're saying, like, they just didn't know Germany did that and they assumed it was an iceberg?
As like an attack. I don't know really like how to answer that, because I think that this whole theory is just like a theory anyway. So like they seen this boat out there and it resembled a U-boat, like it resembled a German U-boat.
Okay.
Apparently.
Okay.
I looked at the U-boats and they do have a very different like shape than your typical like passenger liner. And so I think some people were kind of descriptive of it, and that's kind of where this theory came off. It's just strange that just a few years later, this boat, the U-boat sunk another liner and killed that many people in the sinking. I don't know. That theory I'm not running with. Again, I feel really, really like partial to that first theory.
Yep.
But aside from conspiracies, weird coincidence of the book written in 1898 by Morgan Robinson, what you were talking about. The premise of the book involved wealthy and powerful men going down on an unsinkable ship on a maiden voyage. Other similarities were that both boats were around 800 feet long, both were considered unsinkable, both hit an iceberg on the left side, and both sunk in April and killed many people. Coincidence or inspiration from Morgan?
Right. Because if you think about back in the day, like...
That's all you had was books.
Well, that's all you had was books, and there was no internet to connect the dots.
Exactly. What you are told back then is what you know.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like what you're hearing and what you're reading in newspapers is what you know. That's it. What's coming on the radio is what you know.
Right.
Nobody is questioning this shit at all.
Right.
So yeah, there are a lot of people that think that the book was like you said, like a prediction type of thing, right?
Yeah.
But again, on the other token, it could work the other way.
Yeah, more likely
probably. Yeah.
Inspiration.
And so yeah, that's really it. That's the episode. I did just quickly talk about like recent things about JP Morgan. Like in 2020, JP Morgan and Chase agreed to pay $920 million in connection with schemes to defrauding precious metals and US Treasury markets. And then in 2022, the JP Morgan traders convicted of fraud and attempted for like price manipulation and spoofing and multi-year market manipulation schemes. But yeah, so this still basically is still going on with him. They're actually, when I typed in JP Morgan and conspiracies, there is so much about him for like being a con artist and a scam artist that I was actually overwhelmed and like didn't even want to continue looking.
Yeah.
There was just so much. Like his rep sheet, I did take a screenshot of it. If I had time to read it, I'm not going to read it. If you want to look into JP Morgan's rep sheet, it is very, very long and it's very bad.
He died less than a year after the Titanic sinking.
Yes, and that is also something that I forgot to mention. I always wondered, well, since I've been researching this, if that was like a karma thing.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to enjoy.
How can you live with yourself?
Yeah.
How can you enjoy anything? You just killed how many people?
Yeah.
Also,
but his company is still to this day.
Of course they are.
Of course, because that's,
because it's a fucking bank in there.
Yep.
But really interesting thing you might be interested in watching is The Men Who Built America. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's all about
like the richest families
and where things came from, like the oil moguls, the railroad moguls, like how that all happened and like how they met each other and how they just were so lucky to live in a time of like such revolution that they got rich really fast. But it's so interesting to understand, like, because at my work, I'm always interested in like logistics of things. So I was like really interested in learning about like our rail system and how important it is.
Yeah.
Because the railroad workers are like so close to striking constantly. And if they strike, we are fucked. Like we are so fucked because there goes all the transportation of goods. We have trucks and stuff, but the railroad industry is so important to us. But anyway, so that's how I got into that. It is on YouTube if you're interested, but you'd probably like it. I think they talk about JP Morgan. Is he English or is he American?
I believe he's American.
I think he is too.
I think he is. And I know that he also
he was American.
He had government ties because some of the companies he owned had government contracts. Like I think it was like GE Electric. And a steel company that he owned as well. So yeah, like he, they all do that. They all like fucking cluster together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was it. I hope it was fun. I really do want to make a note here at the end of this episode or even like just think about for a quick second about all the lives that were lost, because it is a tragedy regardless on whether it was planned or not. There was some men that, in the bottom working with the coal, the captain went down there and gave them the option on whether or not they wanted to go up and try their luck or stay down there until the end. And there were some men that stayed down there until the very end and worked. So they're heroes in my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, respect to everybody's lives that lost. We don't mean to joke and make fun of something that I'm not making fun of it, but there's always room to find something to laugh about, and we don't mean any disrespect. And all those lives are
and the way that what a tragedy. Like
it really is
such a horrific
so many women
way
and
to
children
die.
Didn't get on those boats.
Yeah,
it was really fucked.
Yeah, my son really wants to watch Titanic. I'm like, first of all, no.
Not the sex scene.
I know, that's what I said. That's because I was like, there's way too much.
I thought about starting the movie for my kids after the sex scene. Because there's so much drama that kids are not going to be interested in the beginning. It's so slow.
I don't want to it's
show
disturbing.
Him the horror.
It's so really disturbing.
It is. But it is such a good suspenseful movie.
It is.
It really is.
When he's older, when he can handle that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. That was a great episode. I loved it.
Good.
Again, you beat me to it, but
oh, sorry.
it's gonna happen.
I really didn't know that was your plan. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it wasn't. I just had it on my list.
Okay, cool.
Somebody recommended.
Your list is my list, and my list is your list.
The happier we'll be. Yeah, somebody did recommend this though.
Good.
From that, what's his name? Morgan, somebody or other.
Morgan. How coincidental.
Isn't that weird? So the author who wrote the Titanic book also was named Morgan.
Huh. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it was his first name, not last name, right?
Yeah. And what was that book called? Did I even say?
I think it was called Titanic, wasn't it? But that was somebody's Morgan Robertson.
Okay. Yeah,
Futility, Morgan. The Wreck of the Titan.
Right. Good. I didn't even put the title here, so I'm glad that you just said that. But yeah, is that so strange? It really is. And then the whole ties with that family's daughter being married to the Titan CEO, right? Of the submarine.
Yeah.
Ugh, unreal.
Right?
Unreal.
Isn't that so not to get too far off topic, but very conspiracy thing to think about.
Yeah.
A lot of people were commenting on the reel that I made about reincarnation, saying that it's not reincarnation. It's like DNA recycling. Which I want to do an episode on. I thought that was such an interesting thought. But really if you think about it in that way, imagine that family is still suffering the same curse over and over and over. The DNA isn't that weird?
The twins, the reborn.
No, the family, the husband and wife that died on the Titanic. Oh. How their granddaughter's husband died going to visit the Titanic.
Right, that is wild.
But apparently, we've learned no lessons about greed.
Truth. Yes, we still have not.
All right. Thank you so much. And as always, please subscribe to us on podcasting platforms and on YouTube, please.
Yes. And if you go on Etsy, check out our Etsy because we have some merch. If you guys want a t-shirt, what are we? Wicked Mysterious Co.
Yes.
On Etsy. Yeah, check us out.
And we're still running our merch contest from now until I think it's
20. Are we doing it on our birthday? The 20th is the.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do it September 19th. And I said Google Sheets I said Google Docs in the last episode. It's Google
Forms.
Google Forms.
Yeah, Google
so if our link is in our bio on all of our socials, so if you click on that, you'll be able to find the contest entry form. So you have to sign that in order to be pulled because Apple Podcasts doesn't have names; it just has usernames. So I don't know who you are.
Right.
So
Yeah.
please sign that up.
Cool.
Sign up, please. Please sign that, please, if you would like to win. A chance to win.
A chance to win, right. All
Okay,
right. Well,
thank you.
we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Stay mysterious.